Buongiorno a tutti e benvenuti a un altro appuntamento a Studios Lounge. Io sono Mersila Socoli e ho l'onore di accompagnarvi in questi ultimi giorni del Ferrara Film Festival. Qui accanto a me Maximilian Lowe,
Very sad.
il nostro direttore artistico.
Grazie. Ultimi giorni sembra quasi una cosa triste. It's just the last days of festival.
Yeah.
I'm really feeling like sad about it. And grazie, benvenuti ai nostri amici a casa and welcome to our great guest today.
Well, thank you for having us, man. Really appreciate it.
Okay, please, all yours.
Allora, abbiamo l'onore di avere qui con noi il regista di Lair, il film in concorso, che è Adam Ethan Crowe, e il nostro grandissimo attore Corey Johnson. Hi Corey.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Good morning, welcome.
Good,
How are you?
That sounded good.
Are you
That sounded
fine?
really good.
It's not going to be an interview, but more like a chat,
Good,
where we enjoy this marvelous view.
absolutely. I'm waiting for a coffee, so just
Okay.
go ahead. Yeah.
Let's go. And so, I'll speak in Italian, and Max
I'm going to be the
will
translator
translate.
as well. Let's do it.
Great.
So, voi avete scelto un mestiere molto bello. Il regista, l'attore è bellissimo, ma sono anche i lavori più difficili da fare al mondo, credo. Vi ricordate il momento esatto in cui avete scelto di fare questo lavoro?
So you chose a wonderful job. However, it's it's a very difficult job. So, do you remember the exact moment that you chose to do this? I want to do this.
You talking about acting or directing?
Either both. Both.
Both.
So let's start with
Corey?
Corey.
He's the big dog, so yeah.
Do I remember the exact moment? Yeah, I can remember the exact moment. Interestingly, I was a junior in high school and I was taking a drama history class, and I was asked to read a scene between with Medea, the Greek tragedy, Medea, with her husband Jason. So a scene between Jason and Medea, and I can remember a line that I said about giving an inch of sail, meaning sort of all I need is a breath and I'm gone. And I remember thinking to myself afterwards, because I had a feeling when I was doing it, I remember thinking to myself afterwards, I understood what that meant without knowing what it meant. I have no experience of sailing, I have no experience of leading people, but I understood, and I thought, wow. And it was the first time ever in my life I'd felt something like that.
How old were you when
I was
that happened?
16.
16. Okay.
So it was, well, I mean, when you think relatively late, I mean, my mom would say I'd been acting all my life, and she's probably right, but that's what we do. We perform, we cajole, we encourage, we deny, we do all kinds of things like that. The last thing we do as humans is really line up and do what the person directly in front of us is doing. We're not built that way, nor should we be. It's why art works, because art speaks to something in the individual that suggests there's more like you out there, and it encourages us to go and find those sympathetic souls.
That's one.
Beat that.
Beat that.
I can't. So I was homeless, living on the street.
I was
found a
drunk one
camera.
night, and
Yeah, I came to in a bar and
Right.
this happened. Not quite as eloquent as Corey, but I was a photographer, so I used to basically do stills, and I was a writer. So I spent a lot of time writing screenplays for like Robert Laycock, who does James Bond, and Scott Mednick, who produced Ninja Turtles. So I was a writer on that side. And I started doing some TV, and you watch people take your words and then they change them, or they interpret them differently. And as a writer, you sort of look at it and go, what are you doing? That's not what I meant. Because like with any actor, you give them the words, they're the tools, but then the intonation has to come from within. They have to lean into it. There's one way you can turn around and say, shut up, or you go, shut up, right? It depends, right? There's a mythology behind the whole idea of writing and then giving it to a director.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be the one in control. I wanted to turn around and go, this is what I meant. I put it in the paper, and then I get together with the actors, and we work out how we're going to tell the story between us. But it gave me the power to tell it in the way that I imagined it would be when I first wrote it, right? And so that's when I wanted to direct. And yeah, I'm still learning every single day. And every time you watch any film, any television show, you learn things. You see the way people interact. You you sort of, you grow as an individual, and then you start surrounding yourself with like-minded people. Like in our movie, Corey does a lot of big movies. Ours is a little independent film. And if you notice at the start of the movie, it says a film by a family of filmmakers. All of my other movies, they had an Adam Ethan Crow movie, right? But we came together with, because it was originally with a studio, and we had millions of dollars. And then the studio was bought by Disney, it was Fox. And we ended up with no budget and no movie. And then me and my producer, Shelley, who's amazing, who used to work at Fox, raised a tiny bit of money, spoke with Corey, spoke to a few of our friends, pulled our people together and said, let's go out and do this. Let's just, you know, nuts and bolts it together. We're going to make it with barely any money. We're going to shoot in Airbnbs and we're going to tell our story. And everybody lent into such capacity. We were working with patriots, not mercenaries. Everyone was there for the right reason, the right intention. And we weren't paying a fortune. We were paying everybody, but you know, it wasn't millions of dollars. And the amount of like-minded souls, the people we found who were willing to pitch in. The guy who did our prosthetics, this guy Tristan, he worked on one of my very first short films, and he was the DIT guy, right, sitting with a laptop. And we got him to come out because we knew he'd started doing monster effects and blood and things like that on other movies. I didn't know which ones, but I knew he was doing that. He said, I'll come. He came out from Barcelona. He spent 7 days doing our monster and our prosthetics, which I think look amazing for no money. And at the end of it, he said, okay, I'm off to America now. And I was like, oh, are you starting a new movie? He said, no, I just got nominated for an Oscar. So, and he was nominated for 1917 because he was head of prosthetics on that. Okay, the guy that did our VFX did Guardians of the Galaxy, and the money they could have earned, but decided to basically work for beer, money, and cuddles on our movie. I think shows in the film, but it also shows that while the auteur theory is intelligent, you need a driving force. But you need to take, it takes a family, man. And that's why all of our movies now say a film by a family of filmmakers. Although every now and again you've always got that child you hate, but the rest are a family. So.
But in the movie it shows. All you said it shows. How long was the shoot?
I think it worked out to be about 18 days. And we shot it in Airbnbs with no money.
18 days? Wow.
Yeah. And the budget itself was like crazy. I mean, it was around 200 grand. So it wasn't even big money. But we went from millions to a couple hundred grand.
Well,
and
it looks, you know, it looks as like a multi-million-dollar movie. I mean, it's real.
Well, it was funny. We kept getting compared to The Conjuring. Came out. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It came out around the same time. That was a $39 million budget. And we kept getting these things, oh, it's a bit like this, and you kind of go, I'll take that.
Yeah, it's a great compliment, you know.
What we could have done with $39 million would have...
You could have got the jacuzzi you wanted.
Exactly.
But we're really proud of what we managed to achieve, and it was everybody. And I mean, Corey was, Corey and I have worked before in other films, and he's a friend as well as obviously an actor on this as well. And what he brought to it, and what Ashleen brought to it. I mean, she plays the mum in our movie, and she got described as the heart of the film, and she brings something to it which is so powerful, and this sort of vulnerability. And everybody, I can't speak enough about the people that worked on the movie. I think it's like anything though, right now you've got these huge blockbusters, and it's mainly about spectacle rather than story so much. And we had a tiny little story, and we just wanted to put it out there. And I think we did a good job, I'm proud of it. So yeah.
Absolutely, bravo.
Thank you. E in tutto il vostro percorso artistico avete fatto tante cose bellissime, però ogni percorso artistico contiene un po' delle difficoltà, degli ostacoli, a volte delle crisi. Allora, di tutte le cose, di tutti i film bellissimi che avete fatto, qual è stato quel film che più vi ha messo in crisi, se ce n'è stato uno?
So you choose an artistic path, and when you are in art, in movies in this case, you got some bumps on the road. Do you have a moment where you had like a big crisis, if you had, and if you can identify like a really moment, like a moment that you were like, okay, oh my God, I'm in trouble.
Are you talking about career-wise?
Yeah, career-wise, yeah.
I was in my first year of school. I went to the Catholic University of America, which had a reputation as being one of the really great drama schools. It was a reputation that was somewhat, they in the 30s, 40s, 50s, into the 60s, they were a great drama school. as the 70s came along and you started developing more independent film, and into the 80s, it wasn't so good, but it was still really good. But I went there because of that reputation. But it was the only Catholic, run university in America. And I auditioned for a play. I was living in a dorm at the time, and at the dorms they had, it was a mixed dorm, but there was a priest living in each dorm who was like a counselor. And I did this audition where we used to sit in an auditorium and people would get called up and they'd audition for these roles. And I knew there were two other guys. One was a senior, one was a junior. I was a sophomore. Sorry, I just thumped the mic. One was a senior, one was a junior. I was a sophomore. There were two other guys who were auditioning, and I saw this guy who was a senior audition. And I went back home and I knocked on the priest's door and I sat down and talked with him for about 45 minutes. And I said, I feel like I've just seen kind of my own, the extent of my own mortality. That I know I can never do what he did, and I'm not certain why I should continue doing this, because this is a remarkable thing that he's done, and I'm seeing it, and as much as I would like to do it, I can't do that. And I was young. And the great thing about acting is we're all cut from the same cloth. We're all the same type of thing. You access, you use what it is you have to be the best person you can be, to be the best whatever you can be, to be the best actor you can be. And I just hadn't witnessed anything like that. And it made me want to be better once I absorbed it. But seeing it, you just felt like, I don't want to step on stage again. I don't want to set foot on stage. That's crazy what he did. It was just so real and brilliant and what I wanted to do, and I just couldn't do it at the time. So, then you get used to seeing that. You get used to going, everybody's going to bring something different to the table, which is kind of what's great about it. It's like cooking. You don't cook with salt. You cook with 8, 10, 12, 15 different flavors. Some of them cancel out parts of other flavors so that you get a particular thing coming out. And when you mix it all right, you get something that is a signature dish that tastes the way you want it to taste. And that's what makes it work.
And still, you were fairly young when this happened, right?
I was 22.
22.
22.
It's interesting because, before 16, the episode said before,
Right.
20. So
Right.
this.
Well,
all
at
this
the time, you go, I was 16. It felt like I had lived my entire life waiting for something to happen. And then it did. And I went, I know now. There was before that and there was after that. After that, all I wanted to do was be an actor. Drove my parents crazy, When I was 22 and that happened, it set me back because I had to really take a breath and figure something out.
And where in America you grew up? Which?
New Orleans.
New Orleans. Very cool. Very cool.
Me,
Yeah.
on a daily basis, man. There's crisis on day. I think when we're putting together a movie, for me personally, when I first started screenwriting, I left the real world. I watched a lot of bad TV, a lot of bad movies. Thought I'm going to write a screenplay, and I wrote one. And I didn't really have a plan on how to write one. I'd read a few books, and it was awful, and it was really bad, but I couldn't see it until I wrote my second one. And it took me probably about 3 screenplays before I sold it. And there was one that I wrote, the third one I wrote, I actually was hired to write. And I had a deadline, which meant I had to hand it on exactly day, otherwise the money I'd been paid would go back to the producer. And Shelley, my producer, I said, look, read it, tell me what you think. And she read it, and I had like maybe a day before I had to hand it back in. Otherwise, all the money I'd been paid was gone. It was 3 months of my work. And she read it, and she went, oh, the ending's not quite right, and it feels a bit like it's been done before, and and I was like, what I wanted after all that work was someone to go, oh my God, this is amazing. She went, this is great, but this, it's.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, well, she's mean. And I was like, oh my God. And I literally looked at her, and it was almost like, when lovers go, I can't be with you right now. And I was like, I've got to go. And I just walked out, and I walked around, and I was like, this is it. I can't afford to give the money back, because I've been living off it. And this is the end of my career. And I walked around, and I came up with the idea. I went back, I rewrote it, and Shelley read it again. She went, this is genius. And it went in, and they loved it. But there was a point there where I genuinely doubted everything I'd done. Because a lot of the time when you're a writer, you're so close to the project, you can't see certain things. Another example would be, I recently found a screenplay I wrote 4 years ago that I thought was a masterpiece. I didn't sell it. I've sold a few and it's all been great. And I was like, I don't understand. I reread it and it was bad. It wasn't a good movie. It was derivative. And I think sometimes you need to step back and you need to listen to other people. But when you've really applied yourself for like 3 months or something like I had on that screenplay, and you kind of you convince yourself it's amazing. By the end of it, you go, "This, I've done it. This is great. I'll hand it over here. She'll tell me how fantastic I am." And when you don't get that fantastic, you just start getting smaller and smaller, and you go, "I'm going to go for a walk." And I think any artistic endeavor you take on, there are always going to be people who love it, always people who hate it. At the end of the day, all you can do is do the best you can, and if it hits the mark, then hopefully you've got a movie or a piece of art or something. Because everybody's taste is different, you know. What you may love chocolate, I may hate chocolate. Doesn't mean chocolate's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same with any
fattening.
art. Is it?
Fattening.
Damn, I thought it was a good thing.
And it kills
I thought it was
dogs,
full of vitamin C.
apparently.
Does
It
it?
kills
No way, man. Cool.
Just saying.
So yeah, I think, and especially independent filmmaking as well, when you haven't got the backing of a studio or whatever, what it does take, I mean, Corey and I have got a new movie we're doing together, which was a short film we made years ago, and we're going to make it as a feature in October. And he had the faith to work with me on that. He was over in the UK, he was shooting Kingsman, and I didn't know him. I reached out to him, he met me for a coffee. This guy who had never shot a short film before, this is a decade ago. And
Okay, it's a good script to begin with, but I'm reading it and he says, "Oh, people always do this. Say, I've written this part with you in mind," and you go, "It's 3 lines long. You know, what do you think?" So I get this script and I'm looking at the script and I said, "Well, who is it?" You're Dave. And I'm going, looking at the script and I see Dave, someone else, Dave, someone else, Dave, someone else, Dave, someone else, Dave, someone, Dave. And I'm going, okay, Dave's in every scene. Dave does a lot of talking. And I get to the end of the thing and Dave, and it's like a monologue. And I went, okay, I'll do it. I said I'll do it, having just skimmed through it the first time, because anybody who wants me to talk that much, I'll talk that much. I like, you know, I do a lot of voiceovers. They said, "Do you like doing voiceovers?" I said, "Are you kidding? I'm locked in this dark room for 6 hours listening to the sound of my own voice. It's heaven. You know, it's great." So I just, but you know, and that's basically what it was. We were in sort of a dark room, me and a microphone, and I was doing a monologue, which was just brilliant.
yeah, it was like 20 minutes long. And so now we're making, but my point being is though, if it wasn't for me meeting Corey 10 years ago and we becoming genuine friends with his family and everything else as well, we wouldn't be in a position where we were able to do Lair,
Right.
and now Warhol, which is the next one we're going to do. And it is, you sort of, as you go through this, you have moments of doubt and you have people that pick you up and go, "You know what, I got you, we can do this." Part of the reason we were even able to finance Lair, even though it was a small budget, was because we had Corey on board. And they went, "Oh, Corey, he's been in this, he's been in that." And then Alex came on board, and Alex has been in everything as well. And
That's not why.
But that is a part of it, because people will look at your project and they go, "Oh, this guy's attached. Oh, I've seen him do stuff. I know it is." Whereas if I'd turned up with and said, "I'm trying to make this movie," and you've never heard of anyone
Right.
in the whole cast,
Right.
it's harder. It's doable,
Of course.
but it's harder.
Yeah.
And so all those little things, when you get people on board, and then of course Corey's great friends with Oded, you know, who came out and helped out, and you know, honestly, I am so excited about the opportunity that I have now to make movies with people who have the same kind of vision and idea, who are genuinely there for the right reasons.
Right.
I'm blown away by it. So yeah, on a daily basis, there are times where you doubt yourself, but then you get people like Corey or Shelley or Ashleen or Rob as well, who's in the movie. They pick you up and they go, "Hey man, we got
Nice.
this," and you just go, "Yeah."
It works because you're working on a new movie, so same family, same.
A lot of the same people, very, very different. It's not a scary movie. It's
What was the
basically,
title again? Warhol.
it's called Warhol. It's about, like, we live in a world now with social media.
Yeah.
And obviously Andy Warhol said, in the future, everyone will be famous in 15 minutes. That's one of his famous quotes. And we've got a story about a DJ who gets a call that changes everything. It's a phone-in show, which is why in the short film it was all Corey talking. And we've basically sort of written around it. We haven't expanded. A lot of people take a short film and make it bigger. We're not doing that. We're taking the 20 minutes we have and we're building a world around it. And we're really excited about it. So we're going to shoot that in October.
So maybe next year
We'll be hearing it. Yeah.
Here we go.
Dude, any excuse. You want us to come and hold lights? I'm coming. This town is beautiful and funny, and everyone here seems. That's one thing as well. We were just saying with Warhol, for instance, we were in some amazing festivals. We were in Long Beach. We were in Bend, Oregon. We were all these amazing, and you get these great festivals, but there's only a few, and it seems to be more European ones, like like this one, where you turn up and people are there because they're there for the movies. Whereas a lot of them, they're all there about the marketplace, and they're held in.
Or the marketing, you know, it's
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
it's like the difference between, I think there's a subtle difference between a lot of American actors and sort of European actors. I think European actors are more interested in kind of the craft of filmmaking, the craft of theater acting, and it's a whole the whole widget. And I think American actors tend to be more interested in the craft of acting. And so it's about you audition and you get the job, and once you've gotten the job, you're thinking of the next job, because this job you've gotten, and then you do it. And you know, it's I've seen a lot of American actors who are they're very insular and very insulated. And when you're doing anything on stage, in film, it's not just about reaching the camera, it's about reaching through the camera. The camera is the medium through which you achieve something else. And I think people forget that sometimes, that it's about telling a story. And it's not particularly telling your story, it's telling a story that you're the storyteller. So people forget that, kind of like they sacrifice their ability to do that on the pyre of their art. And that's why I prefer to think of myself as someone like a person who makes furniture, makes a chair, you know. You can have a beautiful looking chair, but if the thing doesn't, if it rocks when you sit it down, it's not interesting, it's not a chair. You have to have it sit, it's got to be solid, and you know, then you make it so that it's an individual thing that only you could have made.
Exactly.
You know, but you got to have the fundamentals right.
Yeah, and you have a great experience because you made, you know, indie movies, but you made also huge ones. You know, your X-Men, The Mummy, Captain Phillips.
That was I wish, you know, I wish I'd had something to do other than going, yeah, I'll do it, you know. But I mean, really, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time for a lot of those, you know. So, but yeah, it was lucky. It was, you know. I think
a lot of actors as well, I mean Corey as well and Oded, if you've got a story that you want to tell and you approach them the right kind of way, a lot of them are open to it, because I think nowadays you look at a lot of movies that don't have much substance. And I'm not saying we're going to change the world with our little movie, but it's a little bit different, a little bit entertaining. Hopefully people sit and they enjoy it. When we haven't got any kind of, you know, we're not like a lot of the big ones where it's all explosions and special effects, although we've got some great special effects. And I was talking to a really famous director once, and he said to me, and he makes really big movies, and he said to me, he said, all you want is a good story told well. Sometimes you tell it as a musical or black and white or as a silent movie. Just tell me a good story, right? And you need certain components to do that, which are the actors, the lighting guys, the sound. If it's not right, all those things coalesce. It's like you find a lot of the time, and your director might know this, on a film set, you'll have like the camera team, they rock up like Navy SEALs, we're the camera team, right? Hey, I'm second AC. And the sound guys are always like, but I'm great too. No, I'm serious. Can I have an extra boom guy? Because he's got an extra like AC, right? And there's almost like, you know, the Sharks versus the Jets. And you find that, and you need to understand that the sound is almost, I would say, sometimes more important than the picture, because you'll sit and watch like found footage, but if you can't hear something, it's different. And all those components, from the people that raise the financing to allow you to do that, to the people that put together the post-production and do the delivery, everybody has a role. If the guy doesn't get the coffee for the movie star, then maybe they're in a bad movie and it doesn't quite go so well. And that's what I love about filmmaking. That's what I love about working with Corey and Alex and Shelley. Everybody's there for the same reason. We're all storytellers. So when we're on my film sets, it's not like, well, you're the DP or you're a runner. You're a filmmaker. If you're on my set, you're a filmmaker, right? We're here to do it, from the actors to the distributors, you know. There's a reason you're in part of the chain, and if we all do our jobs right, we end up with a good story that we can share with other people. And all that is a huge campfire. From 1,000 years ago, we'd all sit around with a glass of mead and Granddad would tell stories. We're just trying to make the story broader and get it out to more people.
That's great.
And if you get the right people, then you win. You know, it's amazing. I'm blessed. I love what I do.
Wonderful. So we have only 2 minutes left. One quick last one, quick response, please.
Io penso che dopo questa chiacchierata guarderemo il film con un altro punto di vista, anche se non abbiamo parlato direttamente. Quindi gli chiederei magari se ci vogliono dire in 3 parole qualcosa del film, proprio come lo descriverebbero.
So after this, chat, we even want even more to watch your film. So in quick words, just something about the movie that we're gonna watch tonight, which is just remember our audience, 9:30 p.m. tonight at Apollo Cinepark, Lair. So one quick note about this movie before to go.
I think, you know, it was surprising to make, And I think the great thing about it is it's a surprising film to see. It's a horror film, but there's it's like Adam was saying earlier, there's a heart to it. It's not. I think a lot of people, when you make a horror film, you know, the studios like to be. You have to be able to describe a film in 5 words. They made Speed. They describe it as Jaws on a bus. I know that's 4 words, but still 5 or less. And there are some films that you describe in. It can't be described in so concisely a way. And Lair is like that. You want to say it's a horror film, it's a thrilling film, not necessarily a thriller, not necessarily horrible. There are horror elements, there are thriller elements, but there's other things at play, and I think that's what makes it worth watching.
Thank you.
I would say, see, my thing was I watch a lot of scary movies, and they're always very, very similar, and I want to do something different. Like, normally the family go to the woods, and someone turns out an axe, so we said, we're going to set it in the city, rather than go to the woods. And in those sort of movies, you've got the teenagers who get in trouble, they all split up. No, ours are going to be a real family, and they're all going to stay together. So it's going to be slightly different. But one thing I really wanted is a lot of the time is in these scary movies, there's always a bad guy, and they're in the shadows, like, oh. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if you had a bad guy who you'd like to have a beer with? Because they were quite funny at times and quite charming. And that's what Corey brings to it. He's this guy who's got this dark agenda, but you chat to him, you go, hey, he's quite, okay, I'd have a beer with him. I don't realise he's trying to kill everybody. He'll just, you know, and I thought that would put a nice little twist on it. And so we've got this sort of scary story, but the guy, I think you feel empathy for the family, but you kind of also understand the guy a little bit more as well. So it just makes it that little bit different. I think that is the thing, trying to tell something, a story that people know, but differently. And we were so lucky with the casting choices and the people that helped us out.
We can't wait to watch it tonight.
Thank you, man.
I watched it. I loved it. So I hope everybody else.
Watch it.
Thanks, boss. Thank you.
Thank you
Well,
so
thank you.
much
Thank
for
you.
being
Thank you
here.
very much.
Thank
All
you.
right, Lair
for your
tonight,
work.
9:30 p.m. Apollo Cine Park. I'll see you there. Thank you. Grazie.
Grazie.